Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is our last look at the upcoming Adelaida Ruiz versus Alexis Kubicki WBC super flyweight title fight for the vacant WBC title. You will notice that Adelaida Ruiz is many years older than Alexis Kubicki, but also noticeably bigger. Being the bigger fighter helps when trying to close the distance. It allows you to cover more ground. Longer legs make for longer strides. Adelaida is best described as a come-forward pressure fighter. What you see is what you get. She's going to throw a lot of punches. Some of them are going to get in, some of them aren't, but that's what she's going to do. Throw a bunch of punches. Whereas Alexis is more the boxer, more the mover, more the jabber, more bells and whistles to her game, sporting a professional record of 13 wins with 2 losses and no draws, 2 recorded knockouts, having been knocked out once in 15 professional bouts, and that bout was her last fight with Gabby Fundora when she challenged for undisputed at flyweight. Now she's challenging for the WBC title north of fly at superfly against Adelaida Ruiz, who sports a professional record of 17 wins with 1 loss and 1 draw, 8 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 19 professional bouts. Her lone defeat came at the hands of amateur standout Virginia Fuchs, who bears some semblance to Alexis Kubicki in terms of strategy. Virginia, like Alexis, is a nimble fighter, an agile fighter, more a boxer than a brawler, proving that Adelaida can be outboxed because she already has. Last in action in July of this year opposite the ring Luz Ventura, who she decisioned over 8 rounds on the bounce after that loss to Ginny. Whereas Alexis was in action more recently in September opposite the ring Gabby Fundora, who stopped her in 7 rounds. You saw that fight. That was a punishing fight for young Alexis Kubicki. A brutal fight. She got hit a lot. So, to go from fighting a big puncher at flyweight to now fighting another one at super flyweight, I don't like that. I don't like this fight in sequence for Alexis. And on that premise, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if she's going to win. Adelaida Ruiz can be outboxed because she's been outboxed before, though not by a fighter who had just got their ass handed to him at a lower weight. The hope for Alexis has to be that because Adelaida Ruiz is so many years older than she is, that she'll be slower, easier to read, that she'll telegraph more of her punches so they'll be easier for Alexis to get out of the way. See him coming. The hope has to be that because Adelaida Ruiz is not quite as tall and long as a Gabby Fundora, it will also be easier to navigate around her offense. Adelaida is bigger than Alexis Kubicki, though not quite as big as Gabby Fundora. There are few fighters anywhere at or around these weights that have the same height and length as Gabby. It makes her a notoriously difficult fighter to navigate around, whereas Adelaida is a bit more moderately sized. Not as tall, not as long, and the hope has got to be for Alexis that she can use that to her advantage, though coming right off a punishing fight, coming off a loss, I just don't know, and I can't call it. On one end, Adelaida is dangerously close to 40, and she's not getting any faster, she's not getting any younger. But on the other end, she might not need to for a fighter who just got their ass kicked. So I can't call it. I don't know what's going to happen here. It's a great fight. Don't get me wrong. It's a great fight. It's just that the circumstances aren't great for Alexis Kubicki. I mean, she's so young. To be rushed into a fight like this, I felt that she was rushed into the Gabby Fundora fight. I would not have put her in that fight, and off of that loss, I would not have put her in this one. So this is a gamble, and I don't know if it's going to pay off. At only 22 years old, I wouldn't have rushed her to an alphabet title. She has so much time, and she has the ingredients to beat a fighter like Adelaida Ruiz. She has the right ones. It's just I don't know if under these circumstances she can do it, and so I can't call it. This is one of the few times I'm going to ride the fence, not because I want to, but because I can't tell you who's going to win.
You got to just strip Davis, dude. That's what you really got to do. This weight class is already too packed with talent. Let's not do another Canelo. Well, not as bad because Canelo had all the belts. That was even worse. But you got to free up that WBA title, and you got to let the top fighters fight for it. Because yeah, you see, there's a guy like Noakes. There's guys in this weight class that are good fighters that could that could,
it's almost a
challenge for
shame.
these titles. And right now, the other three are so tough to begin with, like you mentioned.
Now, I agree with one aspect of Paulie Malignaggi's candor, but not necessarily the other, and you might have some idea already what I'm getting at. I agree with him that Gervonta Davis needs to be stripped because he had no intention of returning to the lightweight division. Do you think that after the Jake Paul fight, he was going to drop back down to 135, fighting in regular fights for regular money, in defense of his WBA title that he chose to not unify?
That Jake Paul fight in all likelihood was going to herald his retirement. He wasn't going to do nothing further with that title anyway. There's no need for the WBA to allow him to hang on to it any longer.
No reason. If they were to strip him of the title, and I think eventually they're going to have to, it would go to Floyd Schofield based on the current rank standings. Floyd is the highest ranked contender, but when it comes to Floyd, I don't think him having that title would be any better, because I don't think he's going to fight Abdullah Mason. I don't think he's going to fight the winner of Cruz versus Murataya.
He already shit the bed when it came to Shakur Stevenson, who still is this division's WBC champion, though not for much longer.
If the idea is that the WBA needs to hurry up and strip Gervonta Davis so that the other fighters have a chance to fight for that belt, Floyd Schofield will deprive them of that chance the same way that Gervonta Davis did.
It's not going to be much better, folks.
So I do agree with Paulie Malignaggi that Gervonta should be stripped. Where I don't agree with him is his parallel to Canelo Alvarez. You can't compare Gervonta to Canelo, and it's nauseating to see him do that because Canelo, unlike Gervonta, unified his division, became undisputed.
Gervonta didn't do that at any weight that he fought. Not at 130, 135, or 140. But you liken him to Canelo, saying what Canelo did was worse?
You're telling me that fighting all the belt holders, all the champions, all of which were unbeaten when he fought them, that's bad?
That's worse than what we've been seeing from Gervonta.
It's not an even assessment of the situation. That gives off the impression that Paulie has an axe to grind with Canelo, which we all know he does. So many are critical of the fighters that not only Canelo fought en route to undisputed, but the fighters that he defended his undisputed crown against.
So if it were so easy to become an undisputed champion at super middleweight, then why didn't the Mexican Monster do it? Let's be honest. We all know that's what Paulie and a lot of people are mad at, that Canelo didn't fight David, so they gloss over Canelo's accomplishments that David didn't accomplish.
Though if it were so easy, why didn't David do it? He was there before Canelo. He was there when Caleb was unbeaten. He was there when he had a title. They were on the same side of the street, and he didn't so much as unify with him. We've been all through it, but that's the nature of the critique.
You want to excuse him for not unifying with other fighters that were on other sides of the street? Go ahead. There was at least one champion that was on the same side as him, and he didn't unify with him either, so to me, that is no excuse.
Fighting him after Canelo already beat him and knocked him out and took his belt is no reprieve. So that if what Paulie's doing now is glossing over a major accomplishment like undisputed because Canelo didn't fight David, that's going to force me and a lot of other people to take a good long look at David. What is so special about him?
What?
They often talk down Canelo Alvarez's opponents after he became undisputed. John Ryder, Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga. They don't like those guys when Canelo's the one that fights them and when Canelo's the one that beats them. But I pose to you a scenario where instead of Canelo fighting those guys, it's David fighting those guys. And they wouldn't have had that reaction if it were David. They wouldn't talk them down.
Because they don't talk down David's opponents now. Consider that he just knocked out Anthony Yard, who had already been knocked out by Artur Beterbiev and had already been knocked out by Sergey Kovalev before that. That's Sergey Kovalev.
You know that's the one they say was washed?
Finished. Over the hill.
That's what they say about that Sergey Kovalev. But that Sergey Kovalev knocked out unbeaten Anthony Yard years ago. He faced a fresher, younger version of that fighter, and he knocked him out. And when he knocked him out, they didn't react to that knockout the way they react to David's, as if David's is somehow better.
David fought him after the fact, like he fought Caleb Plant after the fact, and per usual, they overreact.
Don't lose focus. Paulie's axe to grind with Canelo, at least in part, is because Canelo didn't fight David.
Pretty sure if you ask Paulie Malignaggi, Canelo is an overrated fighter, but if Canelo is overrated for being a four-weight, unified, undisputed champion, then what the fuck is David?
Because he ain't none of those things.
And you're high on him. You're rating him. You are overrating him. They didn't like the Munguia fight. They didn't like the Edgar Berlanga fight. Swap out Canelo for David, and all of a sudden they're gonna love those opponents. They're gonna love those fights.
Telling you that everything Paulie says about Canelo comes from the sentiment that Canelo's not that good and Canelo's overrated. But if you want to see overrated, look at David and look at how they act when he wins a fight that everybody expects him to win. He was the favorite going into the Yard fight.
A few days ago, there was a list published by ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence, of the top most overrated boxers in the modern era.
You won't find David Benavidez's name on there, though I think it should be, but you will find the name of Anthony Joshua, a two-time unified champion. Unified, something David never did at super middle.
And don't talk to me about the fucking Canelo fight, because Canelo wasn't there the whole time David was campaigning as a super middleweight. Canelo doesn't come in until the tail end of David's super middleweight campaign. There were a myriad of champions there that he could have fought. He himself was a champion among them. He first won the WBC title in 2017, folks.
Do you understand that that was 9 years ago? I know it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but that was about 9 years and 8 champions ago, not including Canelo. And for not unifying his division, not fighting those champions, essentially not fighting the best at super middle
or light heavyweight.
Stephen Breadman Edwards says that David Benavidez is a mix of Margarito, Julio Cesar Chavez, and Pacquiao. I think he beats Ramirez at cruiser and will become a competitive challenge to Usyk at heavy in a super fight.
All this because he pounced on Anthony Yard, who had already been knocked out 2 times already, who the bookies already favored David to beat. I don't even like David, and I picked him to win that fight.
So that when he wins the fight, Stephen Breadman Edwards, who's supposed to be an esteemed professional with a great boxing brain, can liken him to Antonio Margarito, Julio Cesar Chavez, and Manny Pacquiao.
Overrated!
I saw veteran promoter Lou DiBella say that David Benavidez beats Zurdo Ramirez and Jai Opataya and is okay to have a go at an old Usyk.
They've got him fighting Usyk, folks. They've got David Benavidez moving up to heavyweight and taking on the big dog.
When he didn't take on the big dogs at 168, and that's not exclusive to Canelo, but they pretend like it is, he definitely didn't fight the big dogs at 175.
Zurdo Ramirez, if he beats him, ain't the big dog at cruiser. That's Jai. Do you think David Benavidez is gonna fight Jai?
He's got no history, no track record of taking on the big dogs at any weight he's ever campaigned. But he pounces on a guy that everybody expected him to beat, and for that, they've got him fighting Usyk. I think that Jim Lampley has him beating Usyk.
According to Sean Zatelli does. Sean posted a text correspondence where Jim Lampley has David Benavidez going up to heavyweight and upsetting the big dog. I expected so much better from a veteran like Jim Lampley.
But perhaps Father Time has finally caught up with Jim and dulled his senses, his sentiments, because that is a gross overestimation of David Benavidez. What the fuck is it based on? His amazing quality of competition at super middle, at light heavy, knocking out Anthony Yard, who had already been knocked out 2 times?
Circling back to the center, people talk about Canelo being an overrated fighter when it's David who's overrated, but the reason it doesn't get pointed out enough.
David is the new shiny toy they want to play with. They know that Canelo might very well be on the back 9 and circling the drain. The curtain is set to close for his career, whereas David has more good years left.
He's the Miss Brand New Booty.
So, they talk about him like he's the second coming of Carlos Monzon, a light heavyweight campaign that consisted of
3 fights.
and only one of which ended in a knockout. A grand total of 3 fights. Which allows us to segue to the next installment of what is fast becoming the most popular segment here on the channel, Ring IQ Hate Mail!
To my perspective, that Zurdo Ramirez is a much safer fight and a much safer opponent than either Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. Nuka5104 said, I disagree. You cannot assert he's less dangerous than the other 2 purely on Zurdo being at 175 and being beaten by Bivol.
Oh, can't I? Zurdo is not as decorated a fighter as Dimitri Bivol or Artur Beterbiev. Zurdo's never been undisputed. They have.
Nuka continued, also, did you two not know that David Benavidez came in under the limit and looked skinny in size compared to Yard when he was in the ring despite the fat on his waist?
Oh, really? Did you know that David Benavidez has been talking about moving up to cruiserweight after just one fight at light heavyweight? Before he even fought David Morrell, he was talking about moving up, and I don't think it's because of how easy it is to make the weight.
Nuka continued, the facts are, Zurdo at cruiserweight is not the same as light heavyweight.
Perhaps not, but he's not a more accomplished fighter at cruiser than either Dimitri or Artur at light heavy.
The facts are, Beterbiev is getting very old and was hurt by Anthony Yard in their fight.
The fact is, most people think an old Artur Beterbiev is still more dangerous than a young Zurdo.
The facts are, Beterbiev beat Bivol, so they're in the same ballpark as each other.
Yeah, those two are, but Zurdo's not in the same ballpark as them because he didn't beat either of them, and David didn't beat him.
Or them! Credit for calling this move by David, though, but marriage to a narrative has sullied much of your analysis.
Not if my quote-unquote narrative turned out to be right. How is it sullied if I saw this coming a year in advance before all of you? Now that word, narrative. A lot of people like to throw that word around, but what was my narrative? That David Benavidez' light heavyweight campaign would come and go without a Beterbiev fight and without a Bivol fight. Is that not the truth? Is that not what happened?
Didn't I tell you that he was going to move up to cruiserweight, that his light heavyweight campaign would not last long, and that shortly he would move up to fight Zurdo instead?
Make a lot of statements without actually substantiating them, because if my analysis were sullied, then I'd be the one that were wrong. And while arguing in favor of Zurdo Ramirez and how great he's supposed to be, you never actually constituted what makes him great. What makes him the same or better as Dimitri and Artur?
Do you remember what you're pushing against? You're pushing against my contention that Dimitri and Artur are better and more dangerous opponents than Zurdo, and you didn't actually make the case for Zurdo. What's supposed to make Zurdo so great? No, all you did was call Artur old
and say that he beat Dimitri. But which one of them did Zurdo beat?
Huh?
Oh, that's right. He didn't beat either of them, and he's not been an undisputed champion like either of them. So why am I supposed to look at him as being on the same level as them, especially after he already lost to one of them?
Kind of proves that he isn't.
On the same level as them? Yes, Dimitri lost to Artur, and Artur lost to Dimitri, but neither one of them lost to Zurdo.
Or David, because he ducked.
You can't actually substantiate why you favor the Zurdo Ramirez fight over those fights.
I can, though.
I can explain what motivates your sentiments, and it's not boxing, it's fanboyism. You can't describe what is supposed to make Zurdo equal to or greater than fights with those fighters who have accomplished things that he hasn't, and one of them actually beat him.
You can't make it make sense, but I can make it make sense while you're trying to.
Because you're a fucking fanboy, and you're gonna give David Benavidez a pass to skip out on all manner of fights because you're already on the bandwagon. Whatever he does, you will try to justify. Whatever he does, you will be in favor of. I guarantee you, he goes to cruiser, he don't fight Jai Opataya, and you won't make any light of that either.
I've been saying it for a while now that Zurdo will not fight Jai Opataya, me and my sullied analysis that turned out to be right.
So now in all my sullied wisdom, I'm telling you that David can go in there and beat Zurdo and take his 2 alphabet titles, and after that, he will not fight Jai Opataya. You can take a seat and wait for this souffle to bake, since the fight between them is all the way out there in May, and you'll see that I'll be right again. David will prove it.
David will prove me right again.